Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of Miracle Mindsets. We're so grateful to have Izzy Utterson on. Now, if people don't know you, which I'm sure a lot of our audience will, but can you introduce yourself and tell them kind of how you got into this space and where you are now?
Yeah, of course. So thank you for having me both. So excited to be here. This is it's funny, like it's 7 a.m. for me and I think 6 p.m. for you. So loving this. If I sound a bit croaky, that's why. But how did I get into it? So I worked in social media for 7 years. And I worked at incredible companies. I was at Charlotte Tilbury. I was at Agent Provocateur, always working with and for incredibly successful, hardworking women. And I always had like the image of my mum was the breadwinner in the family. So she was the one who was going off to work, always working. So I always had a huge ambition because I never really thought anything else of it. I never really thought there was like a glass ceiling for me. I knew that I had high ambition. I just didn't really know what that was. I wasn't really clear on what that looked like. And I think I, as everyone does, kind of just slightly fell into the rat race of the corporate 9 to 5 a little bit, which I loved. I loved my job so much. It was, some of the most incredible opportunities, met some of the most incredible people, had some of the most crazy experiences, as I'm sure you can imagine, especially at Agent Provocateur. One day we were literally working in a dance club in Queens, and I'm like eating my lunch, and I'm like, what is going on here? How is this my job? But it was
Oh
so
my God.
much fun, and I learned so many things. Yeah, so quite different to what I do now. But I think what that gave me was a real sense of I can do anything if I put my mind to it and if I work really hard, because I'd had this image of like Charlotte Tilbury, who has built an empire out of, being a makeup artist, which is such an incredible thing. And I, conversely, in 2019 and 2020, I got very sick. I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disorder. So I was hospitalized briefly. I was in and out of hospital every week for blood tests, for checkups. I would have, 20 trainee doctors like looking at my naked body to try and figure out what was going on with me. And that was a lot. And that was, for my self esteem as a young woman at that point, I think I was 22. For my self esteem, that was just like, it took a huge hit because I'd never really had, I'd always had pretty good body image. I'd always been pretty happy with how I looked, and I think I'd placed so much value on how I looked. So that was a real hit in that suddenly my value wasn't in how I looked anymore, or that's what I kind of took from that anyway. And I didn't look in the mirror at my body for 2 years. Like, it was a whole thing. Friends of mine would come into my room like, why have you got the lights off when you get dressed? And I would just be like, oh, that's just like how I prefer it. And the truth of it was that I had such low self-esteem and such low body confidence. And then my mum got sick. So in 2021, she was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, with Benson syndrome, which is a very rare form of Alzheimer's disease. She was 62 when that happened. And that was like the world came crashing down because she'd really been the one that took care of me through me being ill. So she was really the one that was there. And suddenly I was taking care of myself. And I think that was my real rock bottom, not moment, but rock bottom year, I guess. I don't think it was one moment. I think lots of things kind of happened then. Even after I decided to make a change in my life, things would happen. It takes a few failures and a few falling over to get back up kind of situations. But what I chronically had in my mind was, you don't change until you're ready to. And I was ready to. I
Hmm.
was ready to change. And the only thing I did differently was just to never give up. So I had this idea in my mind. I read Atomic Habits. I read Manifest by Roxy Nafousi, which I've literally got, you can see right behind me there, like front and center. And reading those two books, amongst many, many others now, and amongst other courses that I've done. But those two books were really the catalyst for me, because what Atomic Habits taught me was that it wasn't that I was a failure or a loser, but that my brain works in a certain way that you have to work with, not against. And you have to rewire your brain, and you have to work with neurons and neurological pathways in your mind. And I just thought that was so interesting, having never been interested in any kind of form of science before. And what Manifest taught me was how to truly manifest, what it meant to not compare yourself to other people, what it meant to turn envy into inspiration, what it meant to really live that truth. It's not, because I'd been to these vision boarding sessions and these manifesting sessions, and where it would be like, right, we're going to write down the habits that we want to break and this. And it was like, great, I'm so clear on that vision, but I wasn't putting it into practice. It doesn't magically happen if you write it down on a piece of paper and set fire and throw it into the wind. What has to happen is you have the clear vision and you put the work in. So the combination of those two books was invaluable to me because it taught me how to have that vision, how to get very clear on it, and also how to work with my brain to actually achieve what I wanted. So it was really combining, I guess, the more woo-woo side of things, if you want to put it that way, with the very scientific research side of things. There's so much scientific research behind visualization, behind listening to affirmations, behind frequencies. And that is why I've gotten so interested in what I do, because I find that you can tell people all of these things. And at the end of the day, people know what they want, or at least they know what they don't want. People know what they don't want. They have a kind of image of what they'd like. They certainly know, how much money they'd like to be making and the kind of relationship they'd like to be in, but they can't seem to get there. So what I kind of do in my work, I guess, is I call it 0 to 10. So instead of 0 to 100, and is working with people to bridge that gap, to understand how their mind works and what might be blocking you, but also to take a step back and understand the science behind these things, behind these methods. Because a lot of people, and most people actually I found, are skeptical. They like the idea of it, but they don't believe that it works. And if you don't believe that something works, guess what? It's not going to work. So in order to make them believe that it works, I've done a lot of research and I've done courses to learn more about the research behind it, the science behind it, so that when those people do come to me, I can be like, okay, we're going to talk about visualization, but let's take a step back and let me explain to you why this works and how this works in your brain. And let me give you case studies and examples. And I think that's what people appreciate and actually makes them think like, I actually could change my life. So in a roundabout way, that was my journey to kind of finding. There has been a lot of twists and turns along the way. But yeah, that's my story of kind of what I did and now what I do now.
Was there one story when, like, one case study when you wanted to give up and, like, you did the first bit that you'd always gotten to before and, like, now you had this motivation that you was going to carry on and you was going to get it? Was there one story that kind of stuck in your head of somebody who had already done it that inspired you?
I think Roxy Nafisi was a huge inspiration for me. I think hearing her talk so candidly about her struggles was so powerful for me. But I'll give an example of myself, and a failing that I had, which this is something I literally couldn't speak about for about 2 years because I just felt so badly about it. But this was like 3 years ago now, and I was on this journey. I hadn't started calling it the glow up yet, and I hadn't really started talking about it yet, but I was definitely on this journey of self-improvement and, reading more and getting up and doing all my habits and everything. So I was kind of being the guinea pig for everything I talk about now. It was that phase. It was the alpha testing phase of everything. And I just run a 10K for charity, for Alzheimer's charity. And so I was feeling really amazing about myself. What an achievement to have done that. It was the longest distance I'd ever run. I'd raised a good amount of money. And none of my friends came to support me. So that was the first thing. I'd asked a friend to come and support me, and the response was like, oh, it's way too early in the morning. So that was the first kind of like niggle of like, okay, so I haven't got people around me who are going to support me even for something as close to my heart as that. Okay, that hurt. And then that day and that night, we all ended up going out. I got blackout drunk, like really, really bad. And I lost my keys. I was the one with the set of keys. I was living with a couple of girlfriends at the time. And I guess it was my fault to get that drunk, but I didn't feel like supported in the way that, like, if it was the flip side, like I would have been like, okay, I'm taking you home. Like, this is crazy. Like, we're not letting you go out kind of thing. So I think that was one thing. But I think on the other flip side, like I'd done that to myself because I'd done this big run and then I'd not eaten properly and then I drank and then I'd gone out and, it was all just kind of a mess. And I think it was like the next day when I was sat there with like the locksmith, Sunday morning, I'm sat there with the locksmith. I was like, this sucks. I was like, this is just not how I'm going to be spending my weekends. This is such a waste of time. I'm not showing up for myself. this is not conducive to anything good for me. And that's not to say, like, I still drink now. I have a very healthy relationship with alcohol now that I've worked through. But I think I was just like, something's got to give here. Like, you're not loving yourself here. And I, from that point made really conscious decisions to take care of myself, not just in the way of, you can't just read the self-help books and journal. Like, you've also got to feed yourself. You've also got to make sure you're sleeping properly. You've also got to really assess who you're surrounding yourself with. And like, is this a good friend? Do I need to kind of reevaluate that? Do I need to reassess that? And what is it in me that's making me pick those relationships? So I started to figure all that out. And then very quickly things started to fall into place after that. I met my partner a month later, because I think I just assessed like the love that actually I was worthy of and the support that I was worthy of. And a year later, I quit my job. It all just snowballed a little bit from that. But I couldn't even speak about that experience for such a long time without like wincing, when now I can speak about it. Like, I'm like, that's not me. Like, that's such a different version of me who I love and I'm here for, but it's such a faraway version of me. But I think as well, like, I wouldn't be here without those things, that happened. And I think it's very important to be very candid and open and honest about it, because I think people probably look at me and think like, oh, like, you never would have had like a messy night. And I'm like, let me sit you down and tell you exactly.
Let me talk about that. Yeah, it's so true. Like, I think that periods like that, like, it's so weird because I think we're all in, I think everyone who listens to this podcast and everyone who's in the 20s or whatever, I think drinking culture, especially in the UK and here as well, is just such a normalized thing. And like, I obviously drinks, like, and I think there is times for me when I think the two lifestyles, like, something has got to give. Like, you're practicing in the mornings, like your yoga, your health and everything like that, and then in the night, like, you're blacking out or like you're making these mistakes. And like, I think by the sounds of it with you, like, it's probably a mix of, yeah, like, you probably didn't eat and stuff, but also like when you aren't comfortable or you're surrounded by people that like you don't feel comfortable with, like, that is also, I think, drink like fuels the whatever feeling you're feeling. And so I think like it obviously was meant to happen for you to have that revelation, but I think that sometimes, yeah, when you actually step back and you think like, is this aligning with who I actually want to be? And I think it's so powerful.
Yeah, I wanted to ask there as well. I think like you touched on letting things go that like don't align with where you want to go to and letting people go.
Yeah.
How was that? How did you find it? Because I think I would struggle to like let a friend go or like let something go that you're attached to, even if you know that it's not right. And I'm sure lots of people might like think in their heads like, oh, like I never have the best conversation with that person, but like I still meet up with them every month, or like I don't have like my partner doesn't support me in the way that I want them to, but like how do I let them go? Like I still want a relationship.
Yeah.
How did you find that, and what tips would you have for letting those like relationships go? I'd say that's probably, in my opinion, the hardest thing to let go.
Like a romantic relationship.
Anything,
or
romantic, friendship,
yeah.
anything.
I think I was very lucky in that the relationship I had been in, I guess, at the peak of it all, I was just so ready to let go of. When I was really going through everything in the beginning, like I was so ready to let go of it. And I was so clear-minded about that. Like I wasn't going to be swayed one way or another. Whenever I have to have a difficult conversation, I just tell myself what the outcome's going to be. And I do not let anything sway away from that. And that's what I just told myself. And I just knew, I think I'm just like, you've got one life. And I think my mum getting ill really gave me that mindset of you do have one life. And if you are going to be with someone forever, like better make it so worth it, and better make it someone that's so incredible and so kind and so supportive, that it makes sense. I always say they should be a cherry on top of your life, like a really nice addition to a life that is already being lived and already beautiful. I think with, and I got so lucky with my partner but I literally manifested him to the point of like getting so clear about tiny, tiny details. It was kind of wild. But
really?
Yeah, that was kind of wild. But with relationships, that was really hard for me. And I think the problem is that in society, in popular culture, in fiction, in podcasts, the hot topic, and it's swaying a bit now, but the hot topic, certainly in my early to mid 20s, was relationships. No one teaches you how to navigate these female friendships or whatever it might be for you. But no one taught me how to navigate these female friendships. And I was like a chronic people pleaser. And something like switched in me at the age 15, where I just became this chronic people pleaser. I was not like that before ever. Like I was very headstrong, and then, the anxieties of being a teenage girl kick in. And so I'd really suffered. I hadn't necessarily built these good friendships because I couldn't be honest with my friends. I would just like pussyfoot around things. And the problem with that is, and I would see my friends arguing and then being even closer and the friendship being stronger. And I didn't get it. I was like, why are you better friends when like I always am just so nice to you? But the truth of it is, if you're people pleasing, you're lying. You're not bringing anything to a relationship if you're not opening up about how you feel. And people actually, don't see that as an authentic connection. So you're not going to get out of a relationship what you want to. So I think, to answer your question, there's two options. And I always say this to people because it's probably something I get asked at every single talk I do. The first thing you can do is invite your friends into your new life. And if they don't want to come into that new life, if they're like, no, I still want to go out and drink, or no, I don't want to come do that with you. Okay, so I've tried inviting you into my new life. The flip side of it is, and there's a great quote from Brianna Wiest in The Mountain Is You. And she says something along the lines of, the people that are meant to meet you on the other side of the mountain will meet you on the other side of the mountain. So I think it's just accepting that. I think the thing with this journey is, if your environment and your relationships are what's holding you back, and for me, I would say that was probably like 60% of it, like a big bulk of it for me really was the environments that I was putting myself in, for sure. Like no one was forcing me into these environments, but nonetheless, the relationships and the situations that I was willingly putting myself into were not working for me anymore. And I knew that. And I knew that I had to either recontextualize the situation in which I saw these friends, where I wouldn't engage in toxic behaviors, or they were going to have to go. If they didn't want to do that, if they only wanted to see me in those situations, they were going to have to go, because I know myself and I know what happens if I put myself in those situations. Like I know how I'm going to behave. So I think it's just about evaluating when you are triggered, when you do feel bad, getting very clear about what's triggered that. Is it a person? Is it a group of people? Is it a situation? And how worth it is that? Can I create my dream life against the backdrop of that? Because you're working against your human wiring by doing that. If you put yourself in situations that you've been in before, with people that you've been with before, engaging in toxic situations, you're going to engage in those behaviors, because your brain doesn't know the difference between good and bad. It knows need. So it knows, okay, when I'm with this person, when I'm in that situation, this is what I do. So I need to do that. So you're really working against that human wiring. And I guess there's that Mel Robbins sound that's going around right now, and I've listened to her forever, but it's like, no one's coming to save you. And that's okay. But as long as you're focused on everybody else, you're not going to see the truth in your own life. And no one's going to come to save you. No one's going to wake you up in the morning. No one's going to make you go to the gym. No one's going to make you stop scrolling. The only person that is going to do that is you. So I accepted that. And out of that, I have welcomed the most incredible relationships into my life. Friendships, work relationships, the relationships that I have from years ago that I still have are stronger than ever. And I feel really good about them, and I feel really supported. So any kind of growth is going to come hand in hand with a very uncomfortable period of time. And I think it's about pushing through that discomfort and knowing that out of discomfort comes something amazing always.
Remember why you're doing it. I saw sorry, I just wanted to add to that. I saw or like I listened to a podcast TikTok the other day, and it was like, when you're thinking of letting go of like a friendship or relationship, imagine that there's a big red button in the middle of the room, and if you press that button and the friendship or relationship went away, nobody was hurt, like you didn't have to have a difficult conversation, there wasn't anything awkward, it was just gone, and you walked away from it and you felt good after that, then it's time to let it go.
That's actually so true. Like, as you say that, I'm like, who would I do that with?
I know, I might get into bed tonight 10 minutes early, have a think.
Yeah. Just hit that red button.
I was going to ask. I was going to ask, what do you think for you was the moment where, like, you were like, enough is enough, like, stopping people pleasing and starting to please yourself?
I'm trying to think. I think I can't even like pinpoint it. It's really happened quite recently. I think it was just like, I think I've been working a lot on why I am the way I am through
Mm.
therapy, through different kinds of work, self-discovery. And I know I'm very clear in the life that I want for myself now. And I think when you're people pleasing and when you're acting in accordance to supporting other people's feelings over your own, and there's a way to be kind that isn't people pleasing, right? And I think when you're acting in that way, you're actually operating at a very low vibrational frequency because you're telling the universe, like, I don't deserve as much as that person. You know, I'm putting that person on a pedestal and I'm thinking about their feelings ahead of mine. Now, there's a way to think about your feelings and that person's feelings equally. And this is something I've been working through recently of what is the difference between being honest and being a people pleaser. And there is somewhere that you can meet in the middle. It doesn't have to be, you know, my extremes, I guess. Before I started working on everything, I was either a chronic people pleaser or I'd be pushed to the point of being like, can I swear on this?
Yeah, of
I
course.
was pushed to the point of being like a fucking bitch, basically. Like there was no in between. There was no happy in between of like just being actually quite stern. Like I would have had to
Yeah.
have been pushed to my limit of like being kind and being compassionate and being empathetic, which I am as a person,
Mm.
but I would have had to have been pushed to my absolute limit to like explode in that way. And it's happened like maybe twice in my life. Like it's not, you know, I'm not like the Kraken is not coming out, and certainly not anymore because I know how to deal with things. But a huge part of self-respect and self-worth is not being a people pleaser. Actually, it's being able to stand up for your own feelings. A really interesting method, I guess, that I've also slightly been trying out, almost like as like a social experiment, is if there are those friends that you feel that way with, that kind of mirroring of their behavior. So if you've got a friend that like takes weeks to not reply, it's like, okay, well then maybe I'll take a few, like a while to not reply. Or, you know, if you're like, I don't know, it's like not like tit for tat, but I think just like almost giving to the relationship what you are getting. And sometimes
Mm.
people will realize through self-reflection, oh my God, well, she's just acting how I've been acting. And actually, this really doesn't feel very nice. But certainly not enabling that behavior anymore by being like, oh my God, it's fine. Don't worry. Da, 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 it's totally fine, because I would never want you to feel anxious. Like I had a situation recently with a friend where she and a really good friend, and we hadn't spoken in a while, and she'd kind of messaged me just like everything was normal. And I was kind of going along with it for a minute. And then I checked myself and was just like, and I think this was the moment actually to answer your question. And I checked myself and was just like, this isn't, I was like, I think we're brushing some things under the rug here. I think we need to have a chat. And I knew that that would make her anxious, and that was not my goal. I was like, this is not for you to be anxious. Like, and then you see what I mean though? Like, I was like, this is not for you to be anxious. There is nothing to be anxious about. We just need to have a chat. So I'm not trying to make anyone feel a certain way, but I'm also not trying to brush things under the rug anymore. Because I understand that I
Yeah.
don't like feeling worried, and I don't like waiting for a conversation, not knowing what it is. So I would always want to be reassured, like, don't be worried. Like, it's all good. We're fine, but we need to have a conversation. You know, it's like
Yeah.
being honest and true to yourself, but like, whilst also caring about other people's feelings. Because I think the worst thing you can do is like ignore someone or be passive aggressive. Like, I always think it's better to tell someone, like, even if it's like, hey, I need some space, like, you've done this, we're good, I just need some space. Like, I don't think anything good comes out of holding a grudge or making someone feel badly about themselves.
No,
No.
the
You
only
know,
person
I
paying
just,
for
I don't think it's
the only
fair.
person paying for not saying that is you, because like you're the one that's being like, oh, like they're like this and it bothers me like this, and speaking to your friends about it and wasting time, whereas they've done
Totally.
it, not thought anything of it, and gone about their day. I
Yeah.
also think there's
Exactly.
nothing more attractive than somebody, like even in a friend, who just doesn't accept it, and like, yeah, like you say, doesn't make you feel bad or anything, but it's just like knows their worth. And you never want to be the one being told off. You want to be the one like,
Totally.
oh, that's like, that we're fine, but just so that you know, like, I expect this out of a friendship. I expect this support. Like even with the racing, like to say to your friends, like that I would have really appreciated the support at the race this morning. Like I get it was an early morning, I get you out last night, like, and to then like your friend, if they think they've put a foot wrong, should be able to apologize as well.
I think as well, like when you're standing up for your own, it's something I've massively learned because I used to people please so bad, and I do in certain situations still. Like I can recognize it, but I think definitely like I can't hold anything in anymore if it's bothering me. And I seen this quote the other day, and it was like, whatever you don't talk out, you act out. So like this resentment will slowly start to build. It might not happen in the beginning, but it's in relationships, isn't it? Like tiny cracks will show, and if it's
Yeah.
not addressed and not healed, the cracks are going to get bigger and bigger and bigger until like it's completely irreparable. And I think that it's so important. Like I know sometimes difficult conversations are so difficult, but like on the other side of that is like your boundaries being met, them understanding your boundaries. And if they don't, or like it's met with someone who isn't self-aware, who's not willing to take responsibility, then again it's that thing of like they obviously aren't where you're at, and it's your choice to either like invite them into that new life, accept them as they are, or maybe leave them in that old chapter.
Totally.
How was so like how has your confidence been affected by like this change? So by letting people go, by like being more assertive with your goals, and like not just like trailing off after a couple of weeks. How is like your confidence going? I know you said you were very headstrong to begin with, and then like maybe became a bit more of a people pleaser. How was your confidence generally, and how has it been affected since?
I think, oh, it's a good question. My confidence now, I've stopped, this is really a weird one, but I've stopped drinking coffee, caffeinated coffee. And so weirdly, it's really positively affected my social confidence. I used to get quite, and like, as for as long as I can remember, I've had kind of generalized anxiety around lots of different things. If I think someone's tone is off, like I'm very hypersensitive to that kind of thing. When I go
Mm.
into, which I do now quite frequently, events or anything like that, and having to go out to people and say hi, the internalized message that I always had was, you're annoying, no one wants to talk to you, like you're stupid. And these were the things I kind of would tell myself. So when I would go up to people, I would like viscerally feel it in my chest, like this kind of like, don't do it, don't go up to them. I don't know if that's the coffee. I feel like, that's helped actually a lot with like my generalized anxiety. I don't have the jitters anymore, so that's been amazing. But what I will say is, and I say it to people all the time, like the work pays off. We can't solve our problems with the same
Mm.
thinking we use to create them. As Albert Einstein said, like we have to reinvent the wheel. So when I'm talking about listening to high vibe frequencies, and when I'm talking about hitting play on positive affirmations when you wake up in the morning, even this morning when I woke up at like 6:15, I'm like not scrolling, I'm hitting play on the positive affirmations, because the way that we do, when we're doing our skincare and we have that mirror work of associating our mirror image self with those positive affirmations, because when you wake up, your brain is in theta. So it's one of the best times for it to absorb information. So guess what? If the information that you're giving it to set the tone for the day is positive, is I'm powerful, I'm strong, I'm confident, I'm beautiful, at some point, it's going to stick. Now, I can't tell you when that point is. Stephen Bartlett put up a great piece on social media the other day. He speaks about how if you didn't brush your teeth for a day, no one would notice. 2 days, no one would notice. A week, okay, people close to you might notice. And then in 5 years, all your teeth have fallen out. But when did that happen? And it happened the day that you decided to not
Mm.
brush your teeth in the first place. So conversely to that, by me doing all of these, listening to positive affirmations every single morning when I wake up, doing that visualization of who I want to be, what I want to look like. And by the way, I've surpassed that version of me from 2.5 years ago that I could even have ever imagined. And by also getting up on stage and doing public speaking now as frequently as I have, and I'm not saying people have to do that, but it's flexing a muscle. It's like going to the gym. You don't go to the gym once or twice and suddenly have like a big old booty, but if you go for 6 months, you might look in the mirror one day and be like, wait, actually, like, you might compare your
It's
before and after.
growing.
You might not have even noticed, right? But you might compare your before and after picture and you're thinking like, whoa, like I've made such a change in my life. And it's not, this is why I always talk about getting 1% better a day, which James Clear says in Atomic Habits. This is why I talk about the compound effect, gradual things. There's no one moment where it's going to happen. But if you do these things consistently, you will just suddenly notice, like I've suddenly noticed, I'm like, oh, I'm actually so confident in myself now. I can walk into a room and I can be confident in the work that I do. And I can be confident that I deserve to be there. But that happened like, I don't even know when, because I actually went on a brand trip just over a month ago with one of my favorite brands. And just before I arrived, I literally texted my manager. I was like, why am I here? I was like, why am I invited? Like, I shouldn't be here. This is wild. And I actually spoke to a couple of the other girls there and they had felt exactly the same. And by the end of it, I felt much better about it all. But so to answer your question, I don't really know when it happened, maybe in the last like 2-3 weeks, and I've been doing it for a while, but the consistency will pay off. It's not going to happen tomorrow. It's not going to happen in a week. It's not going to happen in a month, but it will happen. And it will get to a point where it's so ingrained into your subconscious mind. What we tell our subconscious mind consistently is what it believes to be true. So if we can work on telling it positive things and being really hopeful, and practicing those positive affirmations in however that looks for us. And that's why I say, have the playlist that I play, because it's easier for some people than saying it out loud to themselves. But it will get wired into that subconscious mind, and your internal reality or your internal dialogue reflects your external reality. So the way that we think, the way that we view ourselves, our subconscious beliefs about ourselves mirror into the world that we are presented with. And it's wild how that works. And I am seeing the benefits of that now.
What would you say for like for people that are battling with, say they logically know that they want better, so they logically can, what you were saying when you're doing the vision board, like you know what you want, but you're operating in like a busy day to day, like you're maybe in a 9 to 5 that you don't want to be in, or like how would you say that you can start to align the highest version of yourself, the current you, and also stop with like the self-sabotaging behavior? Because sometimes we want better for ourselves and then we slip and then end up completely doing the thing that we said we wouldn't. And how would you say that you kind of start to overcome that, and the version of you that you want to be and the version that you are now kind of aligns?
So I think, so there's two things. I think your mind and your subconscious mind, the job of your subconscious mind is to keep you alive. But your mind, and there's this great TikTok trend right now that's like, my brain doesn't know the difference between, real danger and like whenever something happens. Like it's like a trend going around. And there's some truth in it. Your subconscious mind's job is to keep you, you know what I'm talking about. Your subconscious mind's job is to keep you alive. So it's going to seek out comfort always. The comfort of the known is better than the danger of the unknown, even if the unknown is a much more benevolent option. So if you are someone that goes out every Friday with their friends and gets wasted, does it again on a Saturday, feels hungover on a Sunday, the comfort of that known is better than the benevolence of the unknown of going to a workout class, eating healthily, So, but seeking out comfort is a trap. If you feel comfortable all the time, you're going to become really complacent and quite weak. We are meant to feel uncomfortable. So that's the first step, is accepting that. The reason that and the second thing is the reason that you know what to do, but you can't get there, is because you're working against your neural wiring. So what we tend to do as people is we want a quick fix. We're a convenient society. We can order a meal to ourselves in 20 minutes. You know, when I go and try and get on the tube in London, like the subway system, if it's like 10 minutes, I'm like, 10 minutes, you know, I'm expecting like it to be there in 2 minutes. I'm like, what do you mean it's going to take 10 minutes? Like, I haven't accounted for that. And then I get like all in tears about it. Or I would have done, not anymore, cool and collected now, but I would have gotten a real tears about it before. And the reason for that is that we are a convenience society. So we want the quick fix, and we are chronically being marketed these quick fixes, whether it's a juice cleanse, whether it's a workout that's going to change your life, because what these, pardon me, what these companies are doing is selling us a feeling. So we're being sold a feeling all the time, whether that feeling is feeling healthy, feeling in shape, feeling better than other people, you know, whatever it is, we're being sold a feeling. That's why you're going to buy a certain water brand over another water brand. There's a million different water brands, but we buy one over the other. Or this is why you're going to buy a bag that costs an absolute fortune over another bag. They do the exact same thing, but you're being sold a feeling. It's a status. It's whatever it is. So I think being aware of that is a very important step. Being aware that you are being sold a dream and you're being sold a quick fix, and there is no sustainable quick fix. And that is the hill that I will die on. There is no sustainable quick fix. And the reason that we can't do it, so the reason we can be very clear in our vision but not get that, is that neurological wiring in our brain. So we have to learn to work with it, not against it. And the way that we do that is, there are so many different ways that we could do that. And I won't kind of like bore everyone with them today. Like Atomic Habits lays it all out in a really, really incredible way. If anybody wants to kind of invest in that, I would highly recommend it. But there are things like changing your environment. So switching up the environment so that you don't engage in those bad habits that lead you down that path. So if, for example, it is, I want to be someone that is, you know, really healthy and works out on the weekend and gets the most out of their time, which is what I wanted. You know, I actually wanted to, because when I was in 9 to 5, all I had was those 2 days a week. I wanted to really make use of those, you know, because those were the times that I was going to work on myself, work on my side hustle, do all of that, because I was in the office every day. So I switched up the environments. I changed who I would see on a Friday night, and I would change where I would be. I would make sure that I'd like book, you know, financially, I would commit to like a class. Do you know what I mean? So there's a financial commitment there of like, well, I'm not going to miss the class that I'm doing to go out, because like I'll get a cancellation fee or a late fee, you know, really. And like, or I'd plan it with a friend. So really holding myself accountable to, you know, first financially I'm accountable, because I had, you know, I was like broke back then. So any investment I made like had to be committed to. But second was the friend accountability. Even if I couldn't show up for myself, I knew I would show up for them because of the kind of person that I am. So if like me, you were a chronic people pleaser, you at least knew you would show up for that friend. You didn't want to not show up for that friend. So those are 2 ways that you can do it, through switching up your environment. You can also make it really easy for yourself, like, you know, not having junk food in the house, like all of these other things. You know, there are ways to set up your environment for success, and there are ways where you're not setting it up for success. And I think if you truly want to make a change, you've got to set your environment up for success, however that might look. And then, hang on, I've just lost my train of thought because there is something else. Oh yeah. The next thing is to replace those habits with something else. When we take away a habit entirely, we're in trouble. We have to look at the habit loop system. So the cue, the routine, the reward. Now the cue and the reward can stay the same, but it's the routine that we need to change. So let's say that every morning you wake up and you tell yourself, like, before I'm going to go to the gym, but the cue is your alarm going off and the routine is snoozing the alarm, because the reward is that like extra 10, 20 minutes in bed, whatever that you get. We've got to switch that up. So the cue is always going to be the same, the alarm, but we can change the environment by putting that phone on the other side of the room or outside the room, or getting a hatch alarm clock that doesn't turn off until you like do a certain thing, whatever. There are lots of things you can do. The routine is what's going to change though. So the alarm's always going to go off, but the routine is what's going to change, in the sense of, we're either going to have a big glass of water, we're going to do the Mel Robbins 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 method, we're going to get up and just do a stretch. But the reward of that dopamine hit that you would have got from that extra 10 minutes in bed, you're getting from something else. So instead of saying like, I'm just going to stop doing that, you have to really like be honest about yourself of where you're falling short. Okay, so I told myself I was going to do this. Why didn't I do that? Was it that I went to an environment, hung out with a certain person? Was it that the habit loop was completely gotten rid of or remained the same? What is that habit loop? How could I change that habit loop? And the other thing, and I would say before anything you do, And it was interesting that I could do it with friends, but not myself. Make a promise to yourself. If you had a friend that told you, I'm going to do this, I'm going to meet you here, I'm going to do that, and they chronically cancelled on you, or they were late, or they were flaky, you wouldn't trust or respect that friend. And the same is true for yourself. When you snooze your alarm, when you miss that workout, when you make that unhealthy choice, you slowly lose trust and respect for yourself. So what I said to myself is like, I've got to trust and respect myself like a friend. Now, in the beginning, I had to have those accountabilities of spending money on the workout class, going with a friend, all of those things. But the more I did that, the more trust and respect I had for myself, the easier it became. But those for me were the most important steps that I had to take. But you see what I'm saying here of like, it's not as simple. Willpower alone will not work. It's why like 80% of New Year's resolutions fail. And it's why I do the work that I do. Because if you don't understand habit formation, and if you don't understand neurological pathways, and if you don't understand why your mind works the way that it does on a subconscious level, that makes you like blindly reach for the cookie and eat it, and you're like, wait, I just blacked out, like I don't even, that was such an automatic behavior. If you don't understand that, it's very hard to work with your wiring to undo those habits. And if it took you 5 years to walk into the woods, it's not going to take you a day to walk out of the woods. We have to slowly undo the work that's been done and relearn. And I think that's why, one of my steps on my 0 to 10 method is accepting the journey ahead. Because I'm like, guess what? It's not going to be quick and it's not going to be easy. But if you can commit to yourself, but it doesn't have to be hard in the sense of it's actually easier than any diet or workout you've done because it's not unsustainable. Whenever everyone says to me, what was the big change? There was no big change. I actually don't feel like I've made any big changes ever. What I've made is a series of very, very minute changes that are compounded over time to get me from the person I was then, who was broke, in an unhappy relationship, at a job that they didn't like, to where I am now, like for all intents and purposes, living my dream life.
I think as well, like, it's what you say there, it's like making those things not a chance, like everyone has like confident periods, everyone has periods where they feel successful or where they feel like they're like in a good money situation. It's the little habits and the small things over time that make that your life, rather than just like a chance and, oh, I've got it, like I hope I don't lose it, or I probably will lose it but it'll come back, so it doesn't matter, and like not really having that control over it. I wanted to speak to you as well a little bit about like um habits or traits of a successful woman. Like, I know you said you spoke, like you've worked with those successful women, and I think you come across with so many of those traits, because I definitely have worked with so many successful women, and it like rubs off and it's so inspiring. And like things that I've picked up on might be like like having an opinion or having a strong vision, and like sitting down a meeting and knowing what you want to get out of it, what's the brief, what's the like design, what's the content, where's it going, or like having a new idea for a brand or whatever, and just like really having that authority. And then I can think of so many successful women that have like done that and then dressed amazingly, and like just that presence has like come across so much. What are like successful traits that you've noticed that you implement to glow up in like the success aspect as well?
I love what you said about how you dress. I actually think that's like a really key thing. And I know that sounds really silly, but I think how you treat yourself and how you present yourself is very important. It's not the most important thing, but I do think it's important. Like I remember when I was 18 years old, having a coffee with one of my mum's friends who runs a highly successful agency, and she was like, you always have to have your nails like clean and done, always, in any situation. Like it will make you feel put together, you'll look put together. And now I always do. And even in the days when like I couldn't be going out, and getting my nails done every couple of weeks, whatever it was, I would just always make sure that they looked like clean and presentable. I know that sounds really like dumb, but it's just about how it makes you feel. I think some of the habits that I see are boundaries and are non-negotiable. So for all the successful women I see, and this is something I'm still learning, But for the women that I look up to and admire, especially in this industry, they have clear and firm boundaries in their personal life and their professional life, and they know their worth and they protect their energy. That, I would say, is fundamental, number one. Number two is they're very strategic with their time management. So they treat their time as the most valuable asset and invest in it very, very wisely. So that's the second thing. Number three is they're continuously learning. And this is something I'm always trying to do, never settling for current knowledge, always reading, always growing, expanding their expertise on whatever it is they do. There's always more to be learned. And there are ways to do this in a way that doesn't feel, it's like, I don't mean like sitting with a textbook and like doing exams, whatever, but, reading, being curious, having conversations, listening to podcasts. They build, building very successful networks. I used to think networking was like a load of BS, and I've since realized that it is one of the most incredible things you could do. The exposure to people that you want to be like, and the kind of conversations that you will have in those situations is invaluable. Because if you say to someone, I really want to get into this, or I really do this, or this is what I do. I do talks around mindset and the subconscious mind and cultivating your dream life, da, 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 da. They might then have a conversation a month, 2 months, 6 months later, where someone says, we'd love to get a speaker in, that talks about this. And they might go, oh my God, I met that, I met this girl. It's invaluable. That networking is invaluable. And you will go to some things in the beginning that you're like, okay, I might actually not get any value out of this, but you might meet someone who you can bring value to. So it's always valuable. My ring just flew off. Finances. I'm like, where did that go? Finances, getting very like financially literate. Everything I have learned about taxes, VAT, investing is from the women in this business. I did not learn any of that at school. I did not learn. My dad is like the worst person in the world I could ask about any of that stuff. He's got no clue. The women in this industry have taught me everything about that, and just getting control of that ahead of, as soon as you get into the business. If you want to go freelance, if you want to go self-employed, if you want to create whatever it is, getting literate about that before you start is going to serve you so well, because you're not going to have those worries about money. Am I doing it right? Da, 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 da. The next thing is that wellness is a priority. These are people who understand, and sometimes it's not always perfect. There are going to be very late nights and very early mornings, but it's understanding that wellness is a priority. How can I take care of myself? How can I have like even half an hour just for me this week? How can I make sure that I'm getting enough sleep? It's really like prioritizing your physical and mental well-being is a foundation for success. And I truly believe that you cannot think well, make good decisions, and bring the best version of yourself to the table if you're not working on those basic pillars. And I guess the last thing would be resilience and being able to adapt. So things are not always going to be perfect, and that's okay. In fact, things very rarely go the way that we've told ourselves they're going to go. So I try to like never tell myself how anything's going to go anymore, because you're inevitably disappointed. So I think viewing challenges as opportunities for growth. And I think that would be the final thing. That's the final trait that I would see. And then, yeah, like you say, like, even in the aesthetic side of it, like how you present yourself, how you look after yourself and how you bring yourself to a situation. Like Roxy and Grace Beverly's podcast recently, she's saying how she like went through her wardrobe and was like, would Rosie Huntington Whiteley wear these like PLT shorts? And she's like, no. And I was actually, my boyfriend was clearing out his wardrobe the other day, and I was like, would Jason Statham wear it? No, get rid of it. So I think, who do I want to be? Who do I want to emanate? And it's not like, I'm not saying like go out and spend thousands on a new wardrobe. Of course not. Like, who can do that? No one can do that. That's not accessible. It's not realistic. But I think really like curating how you present yourself. And that's taken me like such a long time to get there. But I think just like, it's like, who do I, want to be, and, how do I want to present myself? I think that is important. But I think those things that I've spoken about before are the key pillars. And then, looking nice is a bonus, I guess.
It's so true. And I think as well, like, I think sometimes people can really shun the idea of like looking good. And, you know, it's not about the way you look. And I think, like, especially if you're really talking about mindset and all that, like, people can see it as like you shouldn't just be focused on looking good. But I honestly think that, like, whether we like it or not, like, we are our own brand and we are selling ourselves. Like, it's funny that you said about
Totally.
the nails thing, because,
100%.
like, I remember when we came back. Oh, sorry, go on.
No, you go ahead.
It's funny that you said about the nail thing, because I remember, I feel like you'll know this, when we came back from traveling, like, we never really used to do our nails. And like the first boyfriend that I had, his mum was the most glam woman ever. Like, she was the most beautiful mum, perfect teeth, would always look incredible. And I remember going to meet her and like just feeling like, oh, like, I want to be like that. Why am I not like that? And I remember her saying, oh my God, the most important thing is having your nails done. And like, I see so much value in like, dress up, like, don't wear the scabby clothes that
Totally.
don't suit your shape. Like, you are your own brand, and whether you like it or not, like, your personality is a huge thing, but you're also selling yourself as well.
Totally.
Yeah,
And
I
like
think,
success leaves clues, you know, like you can see those clues of
yeah,
success in the women that you meet. You need to observe these traits, embody them, and your life will transform. You don't have to wear the same outfit, you don't have the same hairstyle, but like you're saying, like with observing that woman, like I remember I had a boss at one of my old jobs, and she was just like everything that a CEO in my mind was. You know, she was just like the pinnacle of it. And I still to this day, this is so dumb, but she would always, like in summer, she would wear like Birkenstocks, and she would always have like French tip toes. And to this day, I'm like, I will always have French tip toes. I'm like, because that's what a CEO has. It's so dumb. But I'm
that's
I
like,
so
love
in
funny.
my
that.
mind, my image of like the person I want to be like just is put together to like from their head to their toes. And that's what I like.
Yeah,
It's silly, but it's whatever success looks like to you. Someone listening, it might
yeah,
look
and it's
completely.
also like it's what you know in your mind. Like you're showing up and you're not thinking like, oh, like I'm hiding like a terrible outfit today and I've got like a rip in the back of my top and like this isn't the best. Like
Yeah,
you're
your
showing
body
up and you
language
like feel
changes.
unreal. Your
Yeah,
body
your
language
body
all
language will
changes.
change, and you'll hold yourself in a
Yeah,
way that is like taking up less space and not wanting to be seen and just not giving confidence. Like when you like sit up, shoulders back, not only do people notice you more, but you become magnetic to other people and you become magnetic to opportunities. Like there's so much to be said about the way you carry yourself, and you carry yourself in a way that is confident when you feel good about yourself, and you feel good about yourself when you're looking after yourself.
and what you were saying before about like, because I've definitely done this, like you'd show up to situations be like, oh, like they think I'm annoying or they think this or like what am I even saying now, I don't know where my head's gone. Like when you look and feel good, or like when you feel good and like looking good might feed into that, like that isn't there as much because like you've already got this self like script in your head saying
Totally.
like you're like you are looking good today, like, you are feeling good, like you know what you're talking about. I was reading Tash Oakley's book today, and she says like you can't imagine the amount of times that she's been like underestimated because she's an influencer, a bikini model, and a businesswoman. People are like, that's so cute, you've got a bikini line or you've got a Pilates brand, like that's so nice, like oh that's so lovely for you. And she's like, I have to like show up and I sell myself every day. But she was talking about, say it would be at a networking event, and she's like, always be ready to know everything about what it is that you do. So if someone's listening and
Yeah.
they're like not wanting to work for themselves or something, it doesn't have to be that, but like what kind of person are they? What is their like what is their role? What do they want to be? What do they want to present themselves as in like an elevator pitch style to somebody? And it can then be adapted to whether you're at like a baby shower or the pub or you are at a business meeting. Like what is it that you do? And knowing that and like being confident in that, like yeah, like attracts opportunity, or somebody will remember you. Because if you're unsure in it yourself, like it reeks. No, everyone knows that. Like
100%.
if I was like, oh, miracle mindsets is like it's like a podcast, like it's kind of just me and my friend just doing it. Like I don't even really know what it is that we want out of it, or I'm like, we're a community of like-minded girls and we help people get better, whatever that looks like to them. Like
it's how
people
you sell
remember
yourself.
that.
It's your pitch, and it's like you have to be ready. If someone asks you, like I'm working on something at the moment, and the person I'm working on it with is like, you have to get so clear about this vision to the point where if someone, like a really snooty person, came up to you at dinner party and was like, so what is it that you do? You would be able to sell it in 30 seconds in such a powerful way. And the same goes about yourself. Like being so confident about, like I was at a dinner party the other night with a group of people who were highly intellectual, all studied at Oxford, Cambridge, whatever. And to them, I was like an influencer, right? Like they're like, oh, she's an influencer, like, oh, you know, all the negative connotations. Within like 2 minutes of having a conversation with one of these guys, he's like sat there like jaw to the floor, because I'm making references to business studies. I'm making like as in like research papers that have been done on business. I'm making reference to books. I'm making reference to, you know, all these different things. And you, in being confident in yourself and, you know, being well read and having listened to things and being curious and taking an interest and being very clear about how you sell yourself is invaluable, especially in those situations. And being able to walk away from a situation like that, like I handled myself like a fucking boss,
You're
is
like,
amazing.
bye bitches.
I'm like, oh, I've got to go now. You know, you're like, it's so amazing because historically, and actually, and this is something interesting I think we do as women, to make other people feel more comfortable, I would play down what I did. I'd be like, oh no, like it's done, like Instagram and whatever, it doesn't matter. No, like don't play it down to make anyone, like don't dull your shine to make anyone feel better or to make you feel more human, whatever it is. Like don't do that. We've done that for so long and we need to stop doing that.
It's so true. And I think as well, I think that when you aren't fully confident or you aren't there yet, I think that when you aren't there yet, like you're in the process, or do you know, when someone first starts something, I think that's such a vulnerable space to be in, because like you're probably a lot more susceptible to criticism. My friend just started a business. It's in like net, is it affiliate marketing, where you're selling a product, and like, and I have seen so many people doing that, and you know, we have this feeling of like, oh, like I don't think it would work if I did it. And she blocked everyone that she kind of like knew that maybe would have a reception where like she wouldn't like it. Do you know what I mean? So she's created this page and she's blocked people that
Good for her.
she knows,
I wish
because she
I'd
was
done
like,
that.
that's what I mean, because you're blocking out people that their opinions might actually affect you trying.
I think it's an extreme way of doing it. I think there's an element of like, let them. Like, people are going to have an
Yeah.
opinion whether you do well, whether you push out the boat, whether you do badly. People are going to talk either way, and people are going to have an opinion either way. I think if that works for you in the beginning, like you're actually like, do you know what? I actually need to not have any eyes on this. I so get that. But I think really, like, it doesn't matter. Like, and by the way, when you
Yeah.
get
And
to like 80, 90 years old, you're not going to be like, I'm so happy I didn't pursue my dreams because of what that person who I probably haven't even spoken to in 50 years thought of me.
yeah, it's so true. And I think, like, definitely as we started doing Miracle Minds, it's like, even to send an email or send a voice note, will you come on the podcast? Like, I remember us being so shy about it, even doing workshops. And then when you actually just put you in that situation, that I think that's where the biggest growth is.
Totally.
And yeah, she's ended up making like so much money already. And she's like, it's because I'm tunnel focused on my own opinion of what this is going to be, and I believe it. And so I was like, wow, that's so powerful, especially if you're starting out, and you, because I think when some people are starting out, people are so worried about the outside noise. And I think in the beginning, before we'd started Miracle Mindsets, we started it as like a quotes page, and we're so scared of like us ever putting ourselves out there. And I think it's only when you actually do it, it's like, oh, okay, actually I can do this kind of thing.
And
And I think all of that gets easier as well, like the more that you know yourself, and like when you know what you bring to the table, you're not afraid to bring it, because like you're not shy about it. You know that you have value there. but like it's when you're unsure in yourself, or like it's when you feel a bit like timid or whatever, that it doesn't work.
100%.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. I feel like that's a good place to end it. I wanted to actually end it with 3 do's and don'ts of a glow up. So like, what are 3 things that like changed the game for you? Like whether it's like a specific serum or like whether it was a podcast or whatever. And what were 3 things that were just like, you can leave that?
Okay. The first thing is sleep. You could have the most powerful computer in the world, but if it's not plugged in, it's not going to work. So you are the same.
Love.
You need to recharge, reset, get that rest to make all the decisions that you need to make the next day, to have that good energy, that good mood, and to be able to make healthy habit decisions. The next thing, there's a product I'm obsessed with at the moment. You can see, okay, I'm actually not wearing any foundation right now or anything on my skin because I had laser yesterday. I meant to say at the beginning, but I'm actually thrilled.
You're
with
so
how
glowy.
What a joke.
You like
Yeah,
look
the
like
laser
me
was
with
great.
foundation. I've like got foundation on right now.
No. This laser was crazy, but I can't wear any makeup for 24 hours. So my skin's a bit like rough right now. But what I have been using on my skin before this are these things called Miracle Skin Transformation Pads. They are, I'm not kidding, they're the best. They're by the cosmetic consultant, and they are literally the best thing I've ever used on my skin. They're these wipes that you use on your skin at night, and you don't put anything else on, and you wake up in the morning and wash it off with warm water, but it's not like sticky, like you can't feel it or anything, like it doesn't get on your pillowcases or anything. And I don't know, like there are so many benefits to it, but those are just crazy. I sent all of my girls group chat a video of me barefaced the other day, and I was like, guys, you need to get on this. This is wild.
Guys, stop the bus.
Yeah, like stop. And then the third thing would probably be, I think there are so many things I could say. I could give you 10 billion trillion glow up tips right now, but I think an easy free one that I would love everyone to try would be, and I can send you guys the link, listening to the positive affirmations when you wake up, even if it's for 5 minutes. Like instead of scrolling, replace 5 minutes of scrolling, if that's all you can manage, with hitting play on this positive affirmations playlist. Like there is something for everyone on there. Like there are things that are a bit more spiritual, there are things that are a bit more practical, there are like podcast styles, music styles, whatever you want, there is something for you on there. And I would just say, like, if you could commit to doing that every morning for a month, like seeing how differently you feel about yourself, because it's working on that subconscious level without really, like, you don't have to sit down and meditate or do breath work. Like you can get ready while you're doing it. So it's just like the best habit stack, I would say.
I love that.
And what about 3 things that just like aren't worth the hype?
3 things that aren't worth the hype: juice cleanses, and that's the hill I'll die on. I think it's like a load of BS. I think it's like, and especially for women who suffer from like PCOS or things like that, which I do, you need protein, you need carbohydrates, you need it all. So yeah, I think juice cleanses, whatever, that would be number one.
The only time I ever considered doing that was like when I was just in the pits, like so like overworked, had no idea what was going on, like no money, like I was just all confused. And I was like, somebody at work was doing a juice cleanse, and I was like, am I saving
like that will sort me out,
it?
because it's selling you the feeling of having your life together, right? Like that's the feeling it's selling you. It's, trust me, it's not worth it. I would say that would be number one. I think number 2 would be, I think, and I don't know that people still do this, I think this is probably more of a thing, like, I don't know, I do see it a little bit. I think wearing eye bags with pride from work. Like obviously there are situations like when we become mothers, when we do everything like that we're gonna be knackered and there's nothing we can do about that. And like, God bless all of those women. I think it's amazing. They're all superheroes. But when it comes to like just work and overworking yourself to the point of getting like 4 or 5 hours sleep a night, like I firsthand have seen the neurological issues that can come from that, both short term and long term. It is detrimental to your overall health. Not focusing on your brain health is detrimental to your overall health. And I guess the third thing would be that there is no such thing as a good quick fix. So that kind of ties into the juice cleanse, but there is no such thing as a good quick fix, whether that's, taking a medication or doing that cleanse or doing like some crazy unsustainable workout for your body, or whatever that looks like. If you are trying to build a sustainable life where you feel your best, you look your best, I would say there's no quick fix that's worth it. I would say it's a lot more worth it to work hard towards it, and a lot more sustainable.
I've
And
been
a lot more
banging on about
rewarding.
this, so much more rewarding. I've been banging on about this, but like a quick fix that just like blows my mind is when I was in the UK, I kept getting this like really sore stomach, or like a really like tight pain in the top of my stomach, and I went to the doctors and I was like, what is it? And they gave me like a tablet, like an acid tablet. They hadn't done barely any tests. They were just like, oh, like it kind of sounds like this. And when I googled it, it was like a beta blocker that like was gonna offset
Anxiety.
the acid basically, or whatever. Yeah. And when I came out to Australia, I was like, oh, this is like, I need this, like this is my life, and it makes me like not feel ill. And I went to the pharmacy and they like, we don't prescribe that to like anyone. Like we'd have to order it in. Like that's so random that they prescribe that to you. And then I went off it, and like in the end it was, well, I think it's a gluten intolerance. So like rather than getting to the bottom cause of that, I was just gonna like take this tablet forever. Even on the phone to the doctors, they were like, oh, like if it comes back, like we can just like carry it on until it goes. Like there had been like no research into it, and I was just like, perfect, if that sorts me out and I don't want this feeling anymore, like I will take it.
Totally. There have been I highly recommend you both listen to the Tony Robbins episode on the Skinny Confidential just gone. There's a really interesting study on depression and medication versus working on your mind. Very, very interesting. And I'm like not going to try and paraphrase, but it's mind blowing. And it's mind blowing why we're prescribed quick fix medication over things that might take a little bit longer, and not even much longer, but will be much more sustainable in the long term, because curing something doesn't make anyone any money.
No, and that's the thing. Like,
We'll leave it at
even
that.
yeah, no,
Yeah,
it's so
curing
true though,
something
because it's the
doesn't make
first
anyone any money.
time. It's the first time I've ever, like, at the end of the year, I think, like, I do think your body over time, like, physically will tell you what's going on. Maybe a wrong mindset, or, like, you know what I mean? And I was overworking myself so much last year. Like, I was going through a really hard breakup, and, like, I just moved here. I was living out of a suitcase. Like, I honestly had such a chaotic life, and I was just a million miles an hour. I was studying to be a yoga teacher. There was just so much going on. And I ended up slipping a disc so randomly in my neck. Like I stretched like one morning, and like I've never ever been in so much pain, because it's pressing on all the nerves in like my right hand. So like my arm was numb. There was just shooting pains. And like I was going to the hospital, and they were just giving me the strongest. It was like codeine, Palexia, and I was walking around like a genuine zombie over Christmas, like so spaced out. And it's only now, like, I've actually just slowed down. I've reevaluated my life choices. Like, I'm not stressing myself out. It seems to have just like gone. Do you know what I mean? I went off the medication because people were saying like, you will, like, honestly, if you carry on with that again, and you'll be addicted. Like, they're so
100%.
addictive.
Yeah.
And I was just like, it's so crazy that that's a norm to just be handing out that.
I know, it's wild, but it happens so much more than you even think.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. You gave so much valuable content there, and I know that everyone is going to absolutely love listening. I already am excited to listen back and like write little notes and
we'll be the ones listening the affirmation.
I know, yeah. I know, please do send us the link.
I will.
Link it as well.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me on. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I'm so excited to hear it.